Yes, it is a day later. It is a Wednesday night. There was some health stuff. I couldn't make it happen, which means Jacob couldn't be here because the man is insanely busy. But don't fret and have no fear. We have the jack of all trades with us today. Ryan Heath, a man of many talents, joining Dynasty Points tonight. And I just have to tell you, tonight's show is going to be just a bundle of fun. I promised it. We're late. We're going to deliver for everyone who is patiently waited. And I just want to say thank you to the support and everyone reaching out. I appreciated it. But we do have to break it down with the brass taxes here. We are not a news show. We are not a start or sit show. We have fun here, and you should too. If you've never watched a full tilt program, we have always known one thing for sure. This game can rip your heart out just when you think you have all of the answers. Well, we can tell you that we don't have all the answers. What we do have is a very particular set of skills we've obtained over a long career. And with those skills, we will always try to give you the most actionable, transparent advice possible. Everything from trades we blew, draft picks we definitely are going to blow down the road, and mistakes we have made. Things we are going to talk about today. Well, Lucas, Ryan, what are we going to talk about today? Today, the meat. The main course of the show is going to be filled with Fantasy Points Discord questions that we are going to cover. And of course, we have some side dishes, a little bit of lighter stuff, right? We're going to talk about players that we're actually going to try to buy and sell, how to do that, some examples, how that meshes with market to micro market, all things that you guys have been asking us to do. And of course, player picks, which I'm sad to announce for like only the second time this year, I'm not entering in first place because Lucas had an absolute insanity run with a 60-point week. Absolute absurdity. With all that out of the way, if you're still watching, if you're still listening, thank you. Also, if you haven't already, go subscribe at Fantasy Points. Because again, Dynasty Points wouldn't be here without Fantasy Points, and Fantasy Points wouldn't be here without you. So it all ties in together, and we appreciate that. Toronto Dave is already here, a day one. God, I love TD. Met TD in person, by the way. The last time I went home in Toronto, that dude, gem, absolute gem of a human being. We love that. Let Lucas cook. Lucas is going to be cooking today. Hot from being at home.
Finally.
On the road. I love it. The people love it. You're looking good. Don't have the double shirt, though, which, I mean, I kind of like the 90s librarian look you were rocking on the last show. Ryan, you're coming in here as professional looking as possible, all the way with a Josh Gordon Patriots jersey hanging in the rafters of Fantasy Hall of Famedom. Thanks for coming, man. I mean, this was a little bit last minute. I reached out. We kind of talked about it before, but I'm glad it was actually on a Wednesday, a day you said we could make it happen. Thanks, man. We appreciate that. We're fired up.
Yeah, of course. Super excited to chop it up with you guys. Been hoping to get on this show. Should be a lot of fun.
Now, you're a Dynasty head that doesn't get enough time to be one. Well, today, let your Dynasty wings soar. Just don't be Icarus. All right. We don't want to get too close to that sun where we start saying like crazy things like, don't worry, Christian Watson's breakout game this year is sustainable. Like, we don't want to become Icarus and like say things like, don't worry, Zach Moss's value will carry over to 2024. We don't want to get that crazy, but let the wings fly tonight. Okay. It's all you. Herms, TT coming in strong with that stash game. This is what we got to do. How you doing? All right, let's kick it off real quick. Ryan, you and I talked the other night while a couple wobbly pops got put back about one of the most absurd statements that exist in fantasy football. And we see it all the time. Everyone's guilty of it. I think we've all said it. All content creators are guilty of this. And if you think you're not, you know that meme where like the dude's pointing in the mirror? Do that to yourself and tell yourself that you're lying. Buying low is a myth. It doesn't exist. It's like Jonathan Franks, right? It was made up. It was fake. It was an illusion. It never happened. It's not real. And I know that there's going to be somebody that says, well, in my league, that's not for you. This isn't for you. We know that there are oddities. But Ryan, you were very passionate about this. This is why I want to ask you. Why is buying low not real?
Yeah, so kind of it comes back a little to how I fundamentally view Dynasty, which I understand is somewhat different from how you guys generally talk about it on this show. In my opinion, like the market is kind of everything. Not in terms of like the market is always right, because yeah, obviously it's not. If the market was always right, then we wouldn't be playing. There would be no game to play.
Mm-hmm.
But nowadays, everything just gets priced in so quickly, and anything that you can possibly think of, oh, I'm buying low on this guy, this is kind of sneaky, everyone else is thinking it because somebody, Joe Schmo fantasy analyst, just went on Twitter and typed it out to his thousands of followers that you should buy low on X. And when everybody wants to buy low on X, you're not actually buying low. There's another part to this where nobody wants to sell low. To buy low, somebody must be selling low necessarily. And that it's just not something that psychologically people tend to want to do. Tom, you mentioned Christian Watson earlier. Christian Watson might be on a few of my dynasty teams, not gonna lie. Might be on a few of them. Is that a guy that I feel good about selling low on, even if maybe that's the correct move, which we might get into later? No, I don't feel good about that. I want to not feel like I'm selling low. I don't want to feel like I'm taking a loss on a player. And I think that's how generally most dynasty managers operate, just on that emotional level. So yeah, buying low is a scam. It's a made up thing for people to talk about and drum up engagement.
I like what Herm says here. Buy low is the trickle down economics of fantasy football. And you're right. I think there's something to that. I don't care about being wrong on a guy. I don't care. I take L's constantly. I happily traded on a very much so contending team in the league of record, Christian Watson, and a 24-second or 25-second for Rashad White. And then he went out and put up 20-some points, and the league tried to clown me, and I was like, well, his 8-point games aren't going to be in my roster anymore, so I have no issue with that. I will sell low on a guy as fast as I can. You have to believe in your process and not look back. I think, Lucas, we've talked about this previously on the walkabout, where we talked about how is the league gonna view me if I am wrong on this. I don't care, because if you're a good enough manager, it shouldn't matter, in my opinion. What about your opinion? I want to know about your opinion.
Exactly. I don't think it's necessarily buying low that you should be looking for as a fantasy football player. I think you're just looking for the opportunities to buy. Jacob likes to say that a lot, especially for the elite players. Kyle Pitts, right now, you're in an opportunity to buy. You're not buying low. You're still having to pay up because everybody recognizes what he can be if he actually gets used the way that we all want him to. Same with Garrett Wilson. We all, I believe he was wide receiver 3 coming into the season. Aaron Rodgers goes down. We knew he was going to most likely be in the wide receiver 2 range all season. You weren't buying low. You just finally had an opportunity to buy because somebody was willing to give him up. That's what you should be looking for throughout your process, is finding the players who you might not have that opportunity to buy, finding those opportunities. And it's even more fun whenever you get to do it by taking advantage of other fantasy managers in your league, because they have backed themselves into a position that they have to make a move. Then you just get to compound all those effects together, and that's whenever you get as close to buying low as possibly exists through this. Now, it's not buying low, it's buying the right way then.
I'll do you one better.
Bring it.
Buying low doesn't exist. All right. Having a buy window doesn't exist. There's no buying. There's no buy low. There's no buying the dip. There's none of that. There's having a buying opportunity. That's where it is. Because when a manager loves a player, right? And remember, the way a trade breaks down if you're buying the dip is you really like this guy and he's underperforming and you're willing to pay in, right? Reestablish the economy, if you would, on said player. Well, you need a window of opportunity generally to do that with if you're going to avoid paying out your arse, right? Like you need an opportunity to do that. So what you really need is a buying window, right? Not a dip, because as Ryan alluded to, there's really no real value dip unless somebody is ready to move off of who was a rookie that started off really terribly this year as an example. Jahmyr
Gibbs.
There you go. Jahmyr Gibbs. Guy drafts Jahmyr Gibbs and is like, oh, this guy is not it. He's not it. He's not actually going to be it. I should get off of this and try to insert running back A to boost my winning opportunities in week 3, which is stupid. So that's the window. Okay. Like that, there's an example. That's a buy window where you're willing to buy regardless of cost, but somebody's actually open to letting that player go. That's realistically what you need. It's not necessarily at buying low. It's what you're willing to buy and set the cost of at that point.
But if we're even going to get into like when there's a low value to buy, that's at the draft. That's whenever the player's at their absolute lowest value before, they actually start producing. Mm-hmm. That's as close as there exists to a buy low. It's then just finding those opportunities to buy, as you were saying. And I absolutely love what Herm's put in here. I'm going to have to stop looking at the comments though, because I'm getting distracted. But yes, to the window and to the wall. But throwing the buying in there. I like it.
You did not do that well enough. To the buying window! The buying wall! All right. We almost lost all of our subs, but that's fine. I think there's another side to this, actually. I blew everyone's eardrums out, and I'm sorry, but it was worth it. I think there's another side to this. You can, quote, buy low on a succeeding player, Alvin Kamara. Okay, going into the season, a lot of people still wanted a first for Kamara. Then he beat the shit out of somebody in a hallway. And then nobody wanted Kamara, but nobody wanted to sell Kamara. They needed a window of opportunity to be able to sell Kamara after he, again, beat the shit out of somebody in a hallway. Not allegedly. Camera showed it. Then he played. And he stepped on the field, and he got like 14 targets. That was the window. You didn't have to pay base first value for base first production. You were able to go because that player was finally able to get rid of this aging vet running back. Kendre Miller was the bee's knees, even though he seemingly doesn't have any at work. And you were able to spend your seconds or some middling, where you were still able to move Tank Bigsby when he wasn't knowingly terrible, with a little bit on top to go and get a Kamara off this because player had a window to move off of him, and you were able to technically still at that point buy low on a player that didn't have a buy the dip tag. Like, there are ways that it can work, but man, the situation's got to be perfect, which leads me to my next point. And this one, I feel like it requires a little something special. There's no such thing as going all in to buy yourself a Dynasty Championship. It doesn't matter how many running backs you spend your first round draft picks on. If they get outscored by KJ Osborne, you're out of the playoffs. It didn't matter. Start again. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Your buy-in is a charitable donation for the next guy. It doesn't exist. And it drives me crazy when I see that. Oh, a couple years ago. Do you remember, Ryan? You were playing Dynasty a couple of years ago. Nick Chubb was the guy. Go and get Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb's going to lead you to the promised land. He's got a favorable schedule. He's been an RB1. He's even getting some pass down work. Well, guess what happened? He underproduced. And chances are, if we went and looked, Nick Chubb on very few championship dynasty rosters. The going all in is the next fallacy I want to talk about. Ryan, I would love to hear your take on this. The going all in. You had mentioned to me before when we were in our DMs and we were chatting it up that there are two kind of ways to look at it. If I remember correctly, it was if it fit your team, X and X makes sense. Do you remember what I'm referring to?
No idea at all, but I can absolutely rant about this for
Please. I'm gonna pull it up.
You pull that right up and we'll figure it out. But yeah, overall going quote unquote all in for a championship. Okay, go ahead.
Showing your dynasty asset, basically. This is the conversation that we had.
Yes.
Yeah, there we go. Inflexible and against what you would say that everyone is a buy and sell, but I think it's a mindset bred from leagues with less liquidity. That's the conversation I'm referring to. Carry on.
Okay. So going all in for a championship, instead of thinking, I think people get excited to do this because they think in terms of, oh, I'm raising my team's projection by X amount of points every week if I sell off all my picks for Alvin Kamara and for Austin Eckler or for whoever the late season go all in buy of the year is. But your issue there is, yes, even if you're raising your weekly projection for the final 5-6 weeks of the season by 5 points, the odds that actually swings a matchup are surprisingly low. I feel this way kind of about sit-start questions in general as well, where people get very, very worked up about do I start this like kind of middling wide receiver 3 or this kind of middling wide receiver 3? It's like either way, it's very unlikely that one decision is going to be what swings your matchup. And it's even less likely that one decision is going to be what makes the difference between you winning or losing a dynasty championship over an even bigger sample. So I just don't really believe in going all in, even if I have like a real like juggernaut contender type of team. If I have good players on my team, there probably aren't that many ways that I can improve my weekly projection that much. If you're buying to go all in, it's probably because your team already isn't great if it's actually being improved that much by selling off all your picks.
Yeah. One tool that I've used a lot lately is South Harmon Fantasy Football. They're a great group. I had the pleasure of talking with them multiple times. They're phenomenal people. Their warp tool, wins over replacement. If you're not looking at fantasy wins over replacement or dynasty warp, it will be really hard to determine if a player actually gives you a meaningful edge. There's very few of them. Oh, of course, Tyreek Hill is. It's week 13. No one's trading you Tyreek Hill. Stop it. It's not going to matter. I have seen today a Travis Kelce trade. Sure. He could definitely be out there and available if you have someone like a Sam Laporta or Dalton Kincaid and you want to tack onto that. Sure. Travis Kelce is one of the few people that I think would give you a meaningful advantage. Him and like 5 others. Good luck. Like what about Cooper Kupp? Yeah, he could, but he also has the same range of outcomes as 35 other wide receivers this year. Pay up for Cooper Kupp, just use Nico Collins. Well, I think I would rather just use Nico Collins. The only way that going in my opinion, makes logical sense is if you are buying a player whose value won't die if he stubs his toe and misses 5 weeks next year. So, okay, I'm looking to boost my running back room. Well, I will go reach out to someone that has, I don't know, a Travis Etienne, even if they're still contending, and I'll send them a running back. and I'll send them a draft pick if it moves me up a tier or two. Sure, that to me makes more sense than go and send a first round pick for Derrick Henry. Yeah, at the start of the year, right? Obviously, no one's bloody well doing that now. But like, you can go, Ryan, Lucas, you can go and get Devin Singletary for a third round pick, and you can get 15 points per game. Or you could spend 3 firsts and go and get Breece Hall for a few weeks, who can end up giving you 15 points per game. And then now, yes, you have an elite run. And I'm not saying don't trade for Breece Hall. I'm not saying that. You should trade for Breece Hall. Breece Hall is the shit. He's so good. Aaron Rodgers is about to defy everything we know about science once again and tell us weekly, how he did it, but subliminally, not outright, because it's Aaron Rodgers. But the range of outcomes is the same. So, Lucas, I would like from you a couple of examples of a player whose range of outcomes could technically be league winning without being an elite asset, because to me, that's going all in.
Yeah, sure. You gave a great example. All right. Devin Singletary is, to me, the most obvious one right now. On most of my rebuilding teams, I picked him up at the beginning of the season because he was free. Picked him up, moved him for a third. I'm more than happy to do that whenever I'm trying to tank for the 101. And you're getting a player who you said is going to probably average 15 fantasy points per game for the rest of the way here. Zach Moss is another semi-obvious person right now who you shouldn't have to pay up for to get points on your bench. If you would have traded for him 2 weeks ago, he would have been basically free, but nobody wanted him 2 weeks ago. So that's another obvious one. Wide receiver wise, it was really fun with Adam Thielen there for a little while. You should have moved him while you had a chance. That's not really somebody you're trying to go after now. But Braden Cooks is now starting to look really exciting with the way that Dallas is throwing the ball. But he's an afterthought. That's somebody that you might have to move a second for him. I highly doubt it. Still looking around a third. And that's players who are going to be getting you at minimum double-digit fantasy points to sit at the very end of your starting roster. And the wins above replacement that they are providing you compared to what you're going to have to be buying for some of these elite assets. If you want to try and go get a CeeDee Lamb from somebody, potentially Tyreek Hill, as you were talking about, even paying up for Justin Jefferson, who's about to come off the IR. And I think he may have came off the IR this week.
Yep. We're not a news show, Lucas.
I know.
Don't make me a liar. Don't make me a liar, you asshole.
But all of these like elite assets that you're wanting to have to pay up for, you can get somebody who's going to, over the next, what week is this? Week 12. The next 5 weeks as you're going for your fantasy championship, they're going to provide roughly the exact 13. Thank you. 13. They're going to be providing you basically the exact same number of potential wins above replacement as some of these elite assets. If you're going to buy elite assets, buy them for next season. You're not buying them to go on and win your championship.
Right. Remember, this is Dynasty, not Redraft. Toronto Dave has a great point, and Ryan, I would love your take on this because I have a take on this. So let's hear a true Dynasty big brain take here, because I just yell a lot. I don't know if I've got big brain takes, but I know you are one with the big brain takes. What about contenders who lost Burrow? Superflex asking for a friend. How much value you willing to lose in this case? I'm still a decent contender without Burrow, but obviously it is a big blow.
I'm very glad you asked. Yeah, because that I wouldn't even call this an exception. I would call this a different situation. If you're a contender and you lost Burrow, you're not going all in. You're like scraping to stay above water and try to survive. That's how I would characterize this. And yeah, if you've got a super flex roster that was extremely dependent on Joe Burrow, then yes, I think it's okay to go out and spend some of your draft capital to acquire another quarterback, or probably would make more sense if you are really that into, I need to win this year, I need to compete, just trade Burrow away for a different quarterback, even if you're taking a slight value loss. Jakob always talks about deals like this where the value of the players on each side can be similar, where you on either side of the deal, you're happy taking it because of your team situation. Yeah, a team that needs to shed points, they're going to take Burrow off your hands. Maybe they'll give you like a Justin Herbert, and that can be like a mutually beneficial deal.
Right. Those are out there. I don't like giving up someone like Burrow. Like if I can avoid it at all costs, right? I've seen a lot of questions like, would you trade Burrow for Sam Howell and insert wide receiver Debo? No, no, I wouldn't. Sam Howell has as good of an opportunity of starting for the Commanders next year as he does the Toronto Argonauts. So no, I'm not rolling the dice. And he also, not only is he like a really good fantasy asset this year, sure, but he's also the worst, best looking player in the league. Like he looks terrible every week. And somehow go look at everyone but Brian Robinson's rankings in points per game on the year. You will be sick to your stomach at how god awful it is for them. He is a fake, another Jonathan Franks made up imaginary fairy tale of a fantasy asset. He's hyper fragile. He's not just fragile, hyper fragile. He can be replaced at any point, realistically. Now, if you believe in Sam Howell, John, over at the Full Tilt Devy podcast, I implore you to take in a deep breath. But as much as I don't like trading for Burrow, I think that you're right. I think there is an opportunity there. I think that there are players out there that you could supplement them, but really at the end of the day, you have to know the range of outcomes of whatever quarterback you're going to get. It's probably not going to be a first-round startup pick next year. Joe Burrow, first-round startup pick next year. So it's got to be, again, it can't be for like some Joe Schmo. It's got to be for another elite. I would take nothing less. I don't care how desperate I am. I would rather go and pay a third, 2/3 Christian Watson for like Gardner Minshew. Seriously, because it's 15 to 16 points per game. Take your best wide receiver, put him in the super flex. Put Tyreek Hill in the super flex. Whoever your number, if you're a contender, you have to have more than one 17 point per game player, especially if it's like a start 10 or start 11. You have to put one in the super flex. There you go. There's your QB2. Solved it. Especially if it's a 4 passing touchdown league. There you go. Even better. And if he scores a touchdown, you get 6 points. I just think there's other ways around it, TD. I just don't want to get out of that elite tier. There you go. I was thinking Kyler, but I might have to give Burrow plus. I mean, I have Kyler ranked straight up ahead of Burrow, I think, at this point. So I would be actually okay giving up Burrow with a little bit of plus. So I don't think that's bad at all. Herm says he's dubbed this the Little John theorem, and he reserves all credit for it. Shout out to Herms. Go follow Herms. He has officially created the Little John theorem, and I love that. I think that's a great place. I think we've hit this topic pretty good over the head. I think it's dead now. Hopefully we never have to hear about it again. I think in conclusion, we can sufficiently say that you must pay attention to the range of outcomes and be accepting of the range of outcomes at all times when making these moves in Dynasty. There's no such thing as actually buying low, and going all in to secure a title is a fallacy. I think I'm pretty confident in saying we've proven this. Now, there is a comment in the chat here from Big X, Little X, Pesky, that I would love to get into, because this is something in Dynasty that makes me crazy. And it's in the Discord, and you guys are laughing already, and I haven't even said it. But I think there can only be one thing. Your core players don't matter if your team is so bad that Zach Charbonnet is the player that you are quote-unquote building a core around. By the time he matters, you'll be 37 and playing in the XFL or whatever springtime league exists. Stop worrying about your core players and neither of them quote building and start worrying about cleaning liquid assets. Let's discuss. Lesky, I hope you can get that clip and send that to whoever that is in your league mate. Tell them to at me, at Elnoster Thomas. I'd love to break it down. I think it's stupid. But let's hear some opinions. Do you believe in building a core of players in a dynasty league when your team is 1-11 and the guy you're building around is Zach Charbonnet, a backup second-round running back? This is dire situations.
Yeah, I don't know that there's that much to say on this. I guess what this reminds me of is I don't really understand in Dynasty when people say I'm building around X player. When a real life NFL team builds around a quarterback, that's because the other players on the team make the quarterback's job easier, or he makes the wide receivers better. Zach Charbonnet doesn't make the other players on your fantasy team better. I mean, if Zach Charbonnet is the guy you're counting on to do that, regardless of how awful the logic in this analogy is, then yeah, obviously that's not going to work out too well for you. But yeah, I mean, if you're 1-11, every player should be on the block to trade. You have absolutely nothing to lose this year.
If you're not in the playoffs, every player's on the table. You know why? You're already out. And the 6,722 variables that are coming in next year are going to make your team, with the current players that they have, less likely to carry over the same freaking range of outcomes as you already had. And guess what? Those range of outcomes landed you out of the playoffs. Like, I don't think it is a hard thing, but Lucas, you're doing more laughing than talking. Let's reel it back in. We're going to tone it down. We're going to settle down. Okay.
Let's try to help this poor soul out.
Yeah,
just a little bit here.
We're going to bring in nice, relaxing background music. We're going to settle it down. Let's help him now.
Just an easy piece of advice for your 1-11 team. You don't have a core to build around. Let's start there. And even if you did have a core to build around, a running back who's a second-round pick, who's a backup to another second-round pick, is not a key piece that you should be holding on to at all costs. If you have a wide receiver who's underperforming, that's one thing. Garrett Wilson is one thing, but he still isn't even off limits whenever somebody comes paying up on your 1-11 team. Let's be for real here.
But Lucas, Zach Charbonnet he's just an elite rusher that just needs an opportunity. What do you mean?
Who was that? Someone. Someone get in the studio? I don't know who that was. It sounded like the voice of the common people, or maybe this fantasy manager. I don't know. But he makes a point. Like, can you elaborate? We're professionals. Let's reel it in.
Okay.
Well, let me answer this, voice of the common people. It doesn't matter. There you go. It doesn't matter. He's a fine player. And maybe if he wasn't drafted into literal hell behind an already established good asset, who, guess what? I don't know if you guys have realized this or not. Like, if you've like paid attention, or if you've even been like playing Zach Charbonnet, not so great even with Ken Walker out.
Tough matchups.
Oh. Yeah, tough matchups. All right, himself.
Zach Charbonnet, he's not Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb has never been the RB1 overall.
Ken Walker.
He's not. He isn't. Sure, he might be more involved in the passing game. Maybe, but that's not even actually true. That's just what his profile says. Regardless, 111 teams don't have a core that you must keep together at all costs. You suck. Make changes to what you're currently doing.
All right, that was a little harsh with the "you suck" there. I feel like that was
sorry. Your team sucks. Make changes to what you're doing.
I mean, 10 fantasy points, 12.9, 9.8.
That's one heck of a core. You can't find that on the waiver wire right now.
Percent of the snap share. I mean, and that's with the receptions, right? 4, 6, and 4. Am I crazy here, Ryan? Like, am I missing something? You're in the Fantasy Points data suite, which is the best data suite in fantasy sports. If you're not subscribed, you should go and subscribe and join the online sensation before everyone who has subscribed passes you by, and you're left wondering if Zach Charbonnet is your building block or not. But is there something I'm missing in the data suite, the Charbonnet, that just, like, am I a bad fantasy manager?
You're going to have to give me longer than about 10 seconds to find anything in the data suite that says you should be building around Zach Charbonnet on a 111 team. But yeah, I would say that Charbonnet specifically, he's actually the perfect example for this, because there's I'd give it even odds that this is the highest Zach Charbonnet's value is going to be in the next 3 years, right? Like, he is projected like somewhat RB2-ish starting fantasy points for the next few weeks with Ken Walker out. Like, we don't necessarily know that that's ever going to happen for the rest of his rookie contract. So this should be a guy that you are tripping over yourself to sell if you're not in the playoffs right now, because there are other teams in your league that he might have a little bit of value to, and he has 0 to you.
Yeah, it just, I don't. Pesky, I hope that solved that. We went way off today, but that's okay. We have more questions to get into. But you know what we're going to do? We're going to take a quick second, and we're going to regroup so Lucas can stop laughing. I think I've broken him today. And we're going to take a quick second, give you a break from our voices, and come right back with more questions from the Fantasy Points Dynasty Discord. Sit tight. All right, let's tap in. Let's get back in. Let's reel it in. We had some great questions submitted, and look, you guys said, "Oh, we don't want to bombard you with questions." Look, this show literally wouldn't exist without all of you, so please bombard us with questions every week. Just spam the at this point. We need it. Brian B13, you had a 2-part question. What is a base first approach? Since that is Jacob's brainchild, we'll answer that next week. I can speak on it because I use it, but I have just, I don't know how to put this. I've just naturally adapted to it and just use it. I'm not going to be the best at explaining it the way that you will need it explained. I will sound like, I don't know, a drywaller trying to take IT questions. Okay, chances are you might get an answer, but it won't help anybody. So we'll do the other part. What concepts are you thinking about when deciding what a first or second round or etc. is worth? I think this is a great question. And this is a phenomenal dynasty question. What are you doing, Ryan, when you're looking at a trade and someone wants to know, how did you get to that first round pick eval?
Sure. So I think, well, there's a couple of ways to sort of view picks in Dynasty, right? One is a way that you guys talk about all the time. Picks are cash, they're liquid, they can be used to buy other things. That can be what their value is. Another way to look at it is, if I make this pick, what are the chances that I'm going to get comparable value out of it for what I'm giving up? Obviously, with a Dynasty rookie pick, your range of outcomes, once you've made the pick, just becomes stretched out very wide. It can become way better than what you gave it up for, or it can totally go to zero. Quentin Johnson. Anyway, so when I am evaluating, would I give a first round pick, a late first, for this player, I just think about, like, okay, in an average draft class, if I were to get a wide receiver, say, if I'm trading for a wide receiver at the end of the first round, what are the odds that they're going to put up 12 points per game in their rookie season? So that's kind of where I'll start from. And obviously adjusting depending on who you're trading for, why you're trading for it, where your team is at, all of those considerations.
I think it's a good place to start. I have a different outlook on it. Surprises to nobody, but Lucas, I want to get yours first, because if I go on another 20-minute tangent, we're not going to have any subscribers left. So please tap into this.
So as the fantasy manager who is stuck in the perpetual rebuild, just because it's more fun that way, I'm looking at
donations.
Exactly. You know, it's more for the experience, the networking opportunities. That's what I play fantasy football for, not to actually win money.
Yeah, you're a man of the economy. You're willing to do the work that others aren't to make our economy go, so we don't end up in a fantasy recession. I appreciate that about you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So the way that I typically am looking at first round picks is, you don't want to include what the draft initially, you don't want to include what the draft class looks like, or what your preconceptions are from what the draft class looks like whenever you are valuing what they are. I think last year we were talking about how 2024 class, it's going to be really bad, except for Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison Jr. Those are still definitely the best two, but everyone else was down on it. It devalued picks. The pick value has gone up as we've gone throughout the season. Same thing with the 2025 class. Right now, it's kind of fairly low, just because there's not that elite player that everybody's salivating over. We'll find them by the time that we're ready to draft next season. So
because we had a hard time finding the ones from this year, though. No one cared about Puka until Puka put on the mask.
Fair enough. But I mean, we still had Bijan, we had Jahmyr Gibbs, CJ Stroud's way better than what I think anyone expected as a rookie, and Anthony Richardson's breaking records, and Anthony Richardson's maintaining his value even though he's not even on the field. So there's still good rookies. Roshan Johnson's going to be fine. He's not flashy or anything, but he's fine. Like there's decent rookies out there. I base most of my pick values though on what they're going for in your startup drafts. You can find that pretty much any place that does dynasty content, and then whenever you're finding those like thresholds, then you just start moving from there.
Okay, well, this is where I'm going to somewhat disagree with you. And I don't look at what the draft class is going to be at all, because chances are, if I am moving a first round pick, it is not going to end up being in that top 5 anyway. Let's look at the last couple of draft classes, regardless if they've been, quote, good or bad. From 2020 to, well, you can go even from 2017 to 2021. If we use that as a base, we have known who the top 5 to 6 guys were going to be in every draft class, except for maybe 2018. 2018 was weird. Saquon, Darius Geis, then Baker Mayfield, Rashad Penny, Nick Chubb, etc. Shout out Lamar Jackson for going after Ronald Jones, Josh Rosen, Sony Michel, Rashad Penny, and Darius fucking Geis. Thank you for that. All of my dynasty teams love you for that. We appreciate that. But for the most part, we've known it was going to be Burrow. We knew Allaire right after the draft and where he went was going to go in. We knew Taylor was going. We knew Tua was going. Swift was a lock. Dobbins was a question mark, but he got the bump. Okay. We can look back and we say, well, Jefferson should have been there. Herbert should have been there. Lamb should have been there. Sure. But they weren't. Right now, that is the average ADP of a Superflex rookie draft from DLF. I didn't make this up. This is what the average player, not in my league. I don't care about your league. Okay. This is what the average majority of people said was the top. And we could kind of nail it. Even look at the Kyle Pitts draft. If you look at the Kyle Pitts draft, we knew Trevor Lawrence, Trey Lance, Kyle Pitts, Justin Fields, Najee, Jamar. Like, we knew what that's going to be. Guess what? I can tell you who the top 4 draft picks are going to be in this draft already. Have not even begun my rookie scouting. Can you name the top 4 draft picks that are going to be in every draft in a Superflex draft? Tight end premium or not? Ryan?
Yeah.
Do you know who they're going to be?
Yeah. No, of course.
For the
Williams, May, Harrison, and probably Bowers.
Bam. All right. Anything outside of that, I can reacquire after the draft or leading up to the draft. 2025. Herm says exploit the 24 classes, man. Just wait till 25. The 20 classes mass. And I'll tell you why I want to exploit the people exploiting that. Because
I think it's the opposite this year. Yeah.
I think in 2025, I'm comfortable trading away. I would trade a 25 first for Rashad White right now if I needed to win a title. You know why? Because I can go and get that 25 pick back. To go back to the initial question of how I look at it and view it, I view it as, if I move this asset, can I either reacquire it or reacquire something of equal value at cost within my micro market, my league? Or is it something I have to be comfortable not retaining? And at the end of the day, with the 25 first, right now, with what we know right now, because I can tell you that if you're not looking at it going, well, my process is definitely going to change halfway through next year. Like, something is going to change between now and the middle of next year. Maybe my team sucks, and then I have to reevaluate how much I like the draft class, depending on how much my team sucks. Maybe 3 players stub their toe, 1 pulls his back, I don't know, carrying his groceries inside, whatever could affect my dynasty rosters for that season. Okay, I would immediately start changing how I viewed the 25 draft class just based on that, because you should. Every situation changes. But I view it as, can I attain an asset that I think is going to hold value, hold their water, if you would, especially when I'm dealing with first. Seconds changes completely. I feel like that's a completely different question, honestly. But when you're talking about the first, can I reacquire that cost or at cost? Can I reacquire something that has a similar range of outcomes? And do I have time to do that if what I know now turns out to be incorrect? And the answer with the 25 class is yes to all of them. So that's kind of the way I look at it. And not just with that, even with other players. Am I going to be able to acquire another? I'm going to use Christian Watson a couple of times. Can I acquire another Christian Watson if I trade this one away? Yeah, you can. His name's Gabe Davis. Right? It's the same guy. I don't care. Ryan, his points, it's the same thing. It's the same guy, right? His good weeks, he's on your bench. And the weeks you play him, 90% of the time you're disappointed. All right?
Gabe Davis won people DFS tournaments last week. Okay.
Hold on. I'm just looking at the title, making sure I didn't rewrite this incorrectly. No, doesn't say DFS points.
DFS points right there. Yeah.
No, it doesn't. I don't think. Do I see Scott? No, Scott's not here today. It's not DFS points. That's cashing points every Friday over in Fantasy Points. Better in best ball is not a phrase I want to hear in my dynasty leagues that aren't best ball. So yes, there are players with his range of outcomes that I can acquire. So I have no problem going, I will evaluate him as an iffy 50-50 shot, just like a second round pick is. And I go, yeah, okay, I'll take that second round pick now. I'm happy moving Christian Watson away for that second round pick. Hopefully that semi-answers the question with a couple of tangents. But generally speaking, that's how the three of us have 3 very different ways of looking at your question. So will this help you? Will this be more confusing? Let us know, because I would actually like to know. Woo! Okay, we have time to answer one more, and I feel like this one requires the question music.
Do it.
Because I'm not even going to call it a question music. I'm going to call it. Let's cue the reflection music. I think that's what. Let's reflect. Brian B13, shout out to you. Happy you're listening. What are some general lessons learned after years of playing in dynasty leagues? Oof. We're going to have to really look inward. Brian, what are some valuable lessons you feel like you've learned after years playing in dynasty leagues?
Sure. So I would say this year I've learned a valuable lesson. Maybe I learned it a while ago, but I forgot it and I've been reminded of it. In Dynasty, not making a move is making a decision. You are making a decision if it's week 5 or week 6 or whatever, and your team is not looking how you thought it might have thought it would before the season. Not selling, not taking action, not doing something is you making a decision. You can't push that off, because if you keep your roster the same, your overall roster value is going to fall. Or, I mean, maybe things will turn around, maybe it'll increase, but you are making a decision. Even if you say, I'll wait another 3 or 4 weeks to sell off all these pieces. And by then, there will be 4 other teams in my league that have already done it. All of the contenders have already traded away all of their picks. And I'm that loser in 7th place that can't do anything at the end of the season. And now the agency's been taken away from me. I also blame CJ Stroud and Tank Dell for making my tanking teams way better than they should have been. But I get, we all have our own problems here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's an excellent lesson learned from Dynasty Fantasy Football.
Yeah, I think that's really great. I have no qualms with that.
Mm-hmm. So, my lesson learned from playing Dynasty Fantasy Football.
Yeah. Won't play in leagues with the Bear Dogs. Got it?
Pretty much.
Someone whose sleeper handle is Da Bear Adox, run, get out. He's gonna win.
Yeah, I think he's in first in every league that I'm in with him, and it makes me a little sad.
Or Tomlin. Tomlin's the best dynasty player I've ever seen. It frustrates the hell out of me. Anyway, carry on.
Carrying on. So, like you said, don't stay still, because that in of itself is a decision. And then also don't force yourself to make a trade. Make a trade while you can still, or make a move while you still have the decision to not make a move. My worst trades have come whenever I've backed myself into a corner and I felt like I had to make a move because either my season was lost and I waited too late and I'm like, okay, I've got to do some crazy stuff now, or I felt like too late, I needed to make that move to get to the next level as a team. Those are the worst trades that I've made. I think I traded for Antonio Gibson and I did Javonte Williams in a first to get Antonio Gibson 2 years ago. Still won because of luck, but that was far and away the worst trade I have made. Or your team is so bad that you have to trade away Josh Allen, and the only way you can justify it is by including a Trey Lance that hadn't touched the field yet. Those just aren't fun places to be in. So
tell me you didn't listen to Full Tilt without telling me. You didn't listen to Full Tilt when I hear traded X plus anything involving a first for Antonio Gibson. That's how I know.
You know, I made that trade with you, Thomas.
Yeah, I bet you did.
Yeah. That was a fun time. But yeah, that's the best lesson I have is keep yourself in a position to where you get to make the moves you want to. Don't put yourself in a position where you have to make a move or you feel like you have to make a move.
Right. I like Tron Days. My biggest lesson is continuing to be humbled. Hard to be aware in the moment when I'm being overconfident. So I'm going to try to build habits to be more open-minded. I think that's very important. Brian's lesson learned in his confessional. My lesson is to play every league with Tom because at least it will be fun. That is true. There's a reason that we started this brand with Full Tilt, because I full tilt every week. And it's wonderful for everyone else in the league. Oh, here's Herms. My biggest lesson is that it's not tanking if you have no plan with an abstract end date. I think that kind of ties in to what my biggest lesson is so far. And it's that tearing down your roster for just to get nothing but liquid assets doesn't have to include trading guys that are young elite players. Because guess what, guys? If you have Garrett Wilson, he's going to be really fucking good in 2 years. You don't have to get rid of him. You don't have to get rid of him for a first-round pick and a second-round pick. You don't have to. Because guess what? You're rolling the dice on getting someone that could be half of what Garrett Wilson is. You don't have to do it. Oh, I need nothing but picks if I'm going to tank. Guess what, buddy? If you've already secured the 101, the 102, the 103, you've done your job. Oh, well, now I have to get rid of Dalton Kincaid because he's going to score points on my roster. It's already over. You've won. You're at 103. You've won. You've got one of the lottery picks. Christian McCaffrey, 103. Baker Mayfield, 103. Unfortunately, N'Keal Harry. Jonathan Taylor. Kyle Pitts. All players, except for N'Keal Harry, that you've been able to trade and get more for than you paid to get him, which is that draft pick. You don't have to get rid of him. If you're rebuilding, what's the point of rebuilding? Let me tell you, an all-rookie team isn't winning a dynasty league. It's not going to happen. You need, and look, this goes back to the Zach Charbonnet guy, okay? This is how good of a podcast we are. This is how professional we are. We're going to loop it all the way back to Zach Charbonnet. We're going to come full circle and end on the Zach Charbonnet thing. You want building blocks, just not shitty ones. You don't have to trade Justin Jefferson because you're rebuilding. Now, you might be in a position where your team is so low value that you need to move your most elite asset to attain the most liquid elite assets that you can and take as many stabs as possible. That's legitimate. But if you're like, oh, I have Garrett Wilson and I have Justin Jefferson and my team's bad, I have to trade them. No, you don't. Now, if you're sitting in 6th place and you've got like Kenneth Walker and you've got who are some other mid-tier elites, fake elites? Give me some fake elites.
Brian Robinson.
He's not an elite.
He's even a fake elite.
You're definitely fired for even putting him there. Lucas Gilbert back next week.
Oh my gosh. Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, DeAndre Swift.
Yeah.
There's a lot of running backs. I feel like this is a lot of prejudice against running backs, but we'll take it. In this, Devonta Smith, he's not an elite asset. I don't care how much you yell at me and how much you say he's not. He's in the nesting
Brandon
doll.
Ayuk.
Nesting doll. He's a nesting doll wide receiver, right? His range of outcomes is the same as 20 other guys.
DJ Moore.
Yeah, nesting doll. I mean, unless they're going to come at me about his record-breaking yards after catch and being able to turn 4 hitches and 4 curl routes into 4 touchdowns, sure, elite. Move those guys, okay? But you don't have to move the Garrett Wilsons and those like young studs. You can keep them in a rebuild, okay? You're only, at the end of the day, hurting your team's overall value if you don't have a base value to start with, because you're just prolonging. What if you rebuild and you draft Jalen Reagor and Keyshawn Vaughn in the same draft. All right, I traded Garrett Wilson for 2 firsts. What's behind door number 1? Jalen Reagor. What's behind door number 2? Keyshawn Vaughn. Now you're fucked. Now you have no Garrett Wilson and Jalen Reagor and Keyshawn Vaughn. There's an 8-year rebuild ahead, and that is where player has left. I'm in too many leagues, have to cut them down. Hopefully you're able to find another manager. Player X has left league. That's how that happens. So that would be my lesson. You don't have to completely destroy everything. You're allowed to hold some value when rebuilding. That's my lesson. Because I have had teams for 4 years that are now finally turning the corner because I have learned this. And again, I wanted to make sure I added there are situations where you do have to do that. But that is when you put yourself in a position that Lucas mentioned and backed yourself in a corner and you've had no other choice. So they kind of tie together because we are a professional fantasy sports podcast. Herm's good. He says, thank you. Thank you so much. Slams table. Listen, folks, hopefully your table's okay. Hopefully your hand is okay. Hopefully it wasn't your head that you slammed on the desk. Ryan says, damn, with me, Toronto Dave, and Herms in here, I think we have a record number or variety of diagnoses in one YouTube chat. Don't forget your host. We're all in it together. We're all a bunch of different people. That's what makes the sport so great. Look, I promised some people we would do this, so we're still going to do it. We're at an hour and 1. Ryan, I'm sure you have cooler things to do with your evening, so we're going to try to finish this part semi-quickly. I'm sure people don't want us to have weekly hour and 45-minute long podcasts either. But we did promise. Now, I know that trade deadline for most people, and I don't want to hear it. I don't care if you think Dynasty League should have a trade deadline or not. I don't care if you think that they're bad or they're good. They exist. So if you have a trade deadline coming up and you want some players that you could buy or be willing to buy, sell, or avoid, guess what? If you don't have a trade deadline, guess what you can do? The same fucking thing without spewing whether you do or don't feel like your Dynasty Leagues need a trade deadline. All of those things are possible at once, and we're going to do that. We're not going to judge you one way or the other. So, Ryan, I would love to hear if you have a couple of players. Now, I like to attack ambiguous situations. Well, how can you predict that they're an ambiguous situation? Well, you can't. You do the best that you can. Do you have some buys and some sells for the people dealing with trade deadlines or not trade deadlines? We're inclusive.
Yeah, so whether it's a trade deadline or not,
we do not care.
Yeah, I am going to sort of bring over a redraft principle here because, look, if you're buying at the deadline or not the deadline in Dynasty, you're probably thinking a little bit in redraft terms. In redraft, we like to chase these rookie wide receivers that tend to just kind of come on at the end of the year. It's probably Tank Dell. It's probably too late. But if there's another one this year, sorry, that the chat is completely distracting me here.
Wolverine still have Josh Gordon on his squad. Buy or sell him. Buy him in any XFL league.
Yeah. Yes. What I like to do, and this can work in Dynasty too, because as Thomas has said, this can be a guy that you're going to recoup value for in the offseason if you need to sell him again, or his value could go up. Buy these kind of interesting rookie wide receivers. Josh Downs has been just about even with Michael Pittman in terms of fantasy points per game with Gardner Minshew. That's somebody that I am cool going out and buying. Is he necessarily going to make a huge difference to your roster down the stretch? No, but no player will. And that's an archetype that I don't think we're going to be in next March and Josh Downs' value has has gone down significantly. I don't think you can super lose that type of a deal. Rashee Rice is another example here where that could be a guy that if the Chiefs finally decide they want to not just rotate their receivers through 50% route shares at maximum, Rashee Rice could be a difference maker in the fantasy playoffs. That wouldn't shock me at all if you fast forward 5-6 weeks and told me that. So that's kind of the archetype I'm looking at. Yes, you're paying a little bit more for them in Dynasty than you probably would be in redraft. But as we've said on the show, you can turn around and sell them in the offseason. These guys have already flashed. Even if they don't really do much the rest of the year, it's not like you're like, oh man, if only I hadn't made that all-in move for Josh Downs or for Rashee Rice, now my team is totally screwed. No, that's not a situation you're going to be in.
Nope, I like that. I'm gonna add on before I go to Lucas because I liked what you said, but I am a firm believer in that you should just be wanting to buy all rookie and sophomore wide receivers. Because except for Christian Watson. Don't. It's Jover. It's so Jover. Like it's embarrassingly Jover. And I won't tell you not to buy Quentin Johnston. Because he is a player that there is a legitimate cost opportunity. There is a legitimate buying window for you to gain value on that. Now, is it a low shot? Absolutely. It is looking like he is a elite face planner, like elite. But maybe there's a little bit of hope. Even you could have bought Sky Moore at a discount last year, right? When people were way out of him and still retained a second round pick out there in some leagues. It was possible. I think it is possible that Quentin Johnston gains some value, at least holds the value that you gave up at cost. Now, depending what your micro market tells you his value is, maybe it's too expensive. Maybe it's 202. Maybe it's 204. And I'm not with that. 210? Just any second round pick? A 25 second? Yes. What did we just talk about with 25 first? Yes. A 25 second. You can get that again. So, rookie and sophomore wide receivers. Lucas, players, buy, sell.
So right now I'm looking at sells, and someone I'm really interested in selling is Sam Howell right now. I feel like with the way that he's been producing, but the fact that he's a 6th round pick for a team that should be going through a coaching change, potentially, was he a 5th round pick? Thank you for the correction. 5th round pick.
Hack. Oh my God. Week 12. Wrong round.
I know, man. I don't even know where I am this week, but that's okay. But regardless, the premise is still there. They're going to have a new front office coming in. They're going to have a new coaching staff. They don't have a lot invested in him. Yes, he's producing right now. Use that to your advantage. Go out there, get a future first for Sam Howell right now. Pick somebody who has a little bit better, a more stable future. And yeah, I feel pretty comfortable about that. I am okay with going out there and potentially buying someone like Rashard White, as Thomas mentioned earlier. He's someone I'm very interested in. Devin A-Chain, still think that you can buy him right now, and it's not going to, you don't have to overpay to go get his services. And he's an exciting player to have on your roster. I think right now you're in this moment where you want to buy people that you can be excited about moving forward. As if we're this late in the season, you want people who are going to maintain value moving forward. There's not an obvious way that they can have their job taken away from them, except for potentially injury, but we never are projecting that. So go find the players you're excited about, have fun with that, and have fun playing Dynasty Fantasy Football. Yes, you want to make money on it if you're in money leagues, but at the end of the day, you also just want to have fun. You're spending time doing this. You're having this for multiple seasons. Have fun with it.
Fantasy football isn't fun. It's life. Nah, I I agree with what I like the player. I don't like the evaluation. I think if you're selling Sam Howell, you should be wise to understand the value of a young quarterback producing in the top 10 in a super flex. Go get yourself 2 firsts for Sam Howell. That's
fair enough.
I'm here for the assist. You lobbed it up. I put it down. It's Lob City. I'm DeAndre Jordan. Shout out to DeAndre Jordan, by the way. You had a 5 assists the other night. That was unbelievable. Don't know where that came from, but shout out. He was going backdoor dimes. Unbelievable. He was throwing down backwards alley-oops. Hadn't seen that from him when he was 21. I honestly thought he was playing in China. I'm not kidding. So shout out DeAndre Jordan. We're Lob City over here on this podcast. My advice, if you have the 201 pick, get rid of it. Yeah. It is the most cursed pick in fantasy football. Did you know this, Ryan?
I have heard this recently, yes.
Yeah. If you're new to the show, get rid of it. 106, get rid of it. Well, actually, 106 has turned the table over the last few years, but that's just free advice. That's just get rid of it. Go look in who is taking the 201. I've talked about it many times. It's a curse pick. I think that there are a lot of players that you should be buying into, even if you are quote unquote selling. I don't think there's a lot of players out there that we can really help these contending teams with. Like, let's be honest. We're in week 13, if you're the top 4 teams in your league, chances are you're good. Like we went over it very early. The difference makers, you've got them already. Someone else has got them already. You don't have the assets to go and get it. Going and using the assets you have to go and get that player is going to result in a similar range of outcomes with you ending up with fewer assets. I think we covered that pretty well. I just summarized it really quickly. Do we need to have a half hour at the beginning for that? Maybe not. I just summed it up in a minute, but that's what you get. But there are some assets for you teams that are looking to acquire cheaper or even moderately priced assets to help you build moving forward. Let's go with some really easy ones. Underperforming / injured players. Now, with the injured players, doesn't matter how old they are. Guess what? If you were out there looking to shed points to the manager who had Aaron Rodgers on his team, and you traded Baker Mayfield and something else to put Aaron Rodgers on your IR, guess what? Chances are Aaron Rodgers, seeing as how he's already practicing somehow, he sold his soul for the ability to heal really quickly. He's already going to probably be able to return value if you don't have a trade deadline. If he plays, you're probably going to be able to move into someone that needs a quarterback if that situation arises. Or you've just happened to walk into a starting quarterback in 2024 for paying very little to go and do, just to help you get a lower draft pick and attain another starting quarterback that you can either move next year or use next year. So that's why buying injured players. Here's some players you can do that with. Nick Chubb. Go and buy Nick Chubb. Definitely go and buy Nick Chubb. Saquon Barkley. Even if you're struggling, go and buy Saquon Barkley. Free agent. Situation could be better. Saquon Barkley lands in Houston. Guess what? Even though he's older, his value will pick up. Underperforming / injured players are going to be so key. DK Metcalf. Go and buy. You know why? Jackson Smith and Jigba is coming in. He's like DK's dynasty value has been plummeting, and it has now reached a point where he's a buy to me. Underperforming, go and buy Saquon Barkley. Drake London, go and buy Drake London. Underperforming, oh no, Arthur Smith, oh no, he's bad. Situation's likely going to change at quarterback for them next year, maybe even at coach. His peripherals, phenomenal. Don't have to pay what you used to for him. Go and buy Drake London. Players to move off of. Deebo Samuel. If you've still got him on your roster, contending or not, time to yeet, baby. He's gone. His weekly upside, gone. Christian McCaffrey's a machine. He's taking up the rushing. Brandon Ayuk is a dog, according to Brett Whitefield. Get rid of him. He's getting into the age apex. Don't want him. Get rid of him. Buy Bryce Young. Bryce Young, yes, has been third, fifth, if you listen to Jacob, because Bajan really flashed. I know that was a very Scott Barrett-like joke, but seriously, he's being looked at like I was as an adopted stepchild. Really low on the family rung, okay? But there's an opportunity to blossom and grow, like I did, with the right nurturing and the right situation change. Okay? He's locked in with draft capital. He has multiple years to be a starter. Bryce Young is going to come through for you. I would be very happy paying a late one for Bryce Young at this point. Those are just a couple of quick options. Obviously, you want to buy ambiguous backfields. Buy Tajay Spears. He's looked good when he's got the opportunity. Derrick Henry can be cut because of the dead cap money is not really there. They can move on from him. Potential starting running back. There are some other guys. Isaiah Pacheco, I would say, is a buy. Looking at how they use them, I don't normally want to buy these low round running backs, but he's flashed. They use him. 10 points per game range with some week winning upside. They like him. Kyron Williams, even though you have to pay up, buy. He's been really good. Get rid of your priors. Buy him. I'm giving you a bunch right now. Keaton Mitchell, obviously. Jerome Ford, obviously. Just for some running backs. I mean, Brian Robinson, buy. Young running backs with semi-ambiguous situations, even wide receivers with the same thing. I mean, buy Gus Edwards, potential free agent. Does Baltimore add another running back? I don't know, but he's been worth it, right? Small buys. These aren't big buys because obviously you should want to go out and get elites, and we're going to get into that in off-season content. But right now, these players are out there. Especially if they're injured, go and put them on your roster. Go put them on your IR. And yeah, you have to hope for the best a little bit, but that's what Dynasty is. I once starred in a movie called Backdoor Dimes. Oh my God. Oh my God. Well, that's a good way to end it for that portion of the program. Ryan, every week we play this little game. You've heard us play this game. And as I mentioned, for the first time in a while, I'm not in the lead in this game. This makes me very sad. So I will go first. If you haven't heard before, this is a Dynasty show, but we still need something for bragging rights to prove who's better than the other. What this game is every week we take a player ranked outside of the top 15 of both quarterback, running back, top 24 at wide receiver, and top 10 at tight end. We tally up their weekly PPR points. The winner at the end of the year that has the most total points throughout the season gets to pick the beverages of the other hosts for whatever day Dynasty Points will be hosting live draft content. A couple of years ago, Jacob gave Billy a Canadian gauntlet of beverages, and Billy could barely stay tapped in by the end. I fear, should Jacob win this, truly. But as of right now, it goes like this. Lucas put up a record, Dynasty Points record, full tilt record for weekly points with 61.5 points. Unbelievable. He sits in first at 543.18. I sit in measly second at 542.94. Jacob coming in last at 510.46. The way this has worked, if one of us has missed the show, whoever guest fills in, we use their points for the person who missed. If the person who missed has a problem with that, they should have showed up.
I'm so sorry for what I'm about to do, Jacob.
No, you're going to crush this. Probably going to end up better in the end because Jacob has been not good at this point. This guy is amazing at Dynasty Fantasy Football. This game is his kryptonite. This is his Achilles heel. I'll start this off. I can't believe I'm going to say this. I'm going to go with Kenny Pickett this week. They opened it up. He threw the ball pretty well. Hopefully he keeps targeting Freiermuth. It will work out for him if he does. Look, I'm just looking to stay steady. I think 12 to 14 points will be great. Maybe Deontay Johnson won't drop another touchdown if he even sees the field after the abomination that was his effort last week. I don't know, but a couple of touchdowns and we're in the plus here. I'm going to go Devin Singletary as well. I think that his receiving role is locked in. I'm going to take that 10 to 13 points. Look, I'm not trying to break the bank, right? I'm trying to stay steady and consistent because I feel like that is going to be my key to winning this year. With that, I'm going to go Josh Downs. We talked about him before. He's healing up. Phenomenal matchup. Great matchup. This could easily be an 18-point game for me here. JT not playing could open it up. Let's go Gardner frickin' Minshew. And it's going to make me sick to my stomach, but I'm hoping for 1 catch, 1 touchdown, and 3 yards from Cade Otton at tight end this week. Just get me not 0 at the tight end position, which is what I beg for every week. That's going to be my team. Pickett, Singletary, Downs, and Otton. Ryan / Jacob. Let's hear it.
All right. Well, the quarterback is impossible this week in this game. There's kind of nowhere for me to go except straight into the arms of one Mr. Will Levis. It's really hope that Levis throws a couple bombs against the Colts, or just like playing Stafford or Geno into these horrible matchups. I'm going to play Levis. Jacob needs the points. He needs the upside. So we're going to go there. At running back, give me Zach Charbonnet. I know we've been discussing him on this podcast, but look, he got pretty much all the work in the backfield. I'm just going to take the volume here. Moving into wide receiver, I am going to go Marquise Brown. I will be writing him up for my weekly Underdog Battle Royale column this week. But the long and short of it is that he's got a pretty good schematic matchup into this Steelers defense. I like the play a lot. And at tight end, give me Taysom. All of the Saints wide receivers are hurt. So Taysom's package, I'm sure, is going to be enormous.
We love enormous packages here on Dynasty Points. Enormous packages.
Speaking of enormous packages.
Hey, yo.
I'm talking about my score last week. Where's your mind?
Yeah, ooh, not there. Not there. Nope.
All right. So what I'm doing this week, going with Derek Carr. He's QB16 right now. Has a really, really good matchup this week. I'm trying to pull that up to make sure I'm not lying about it because I've been wrong a lot. Against Detroit, and it is in New Orleans. He's been really good there this season. Really excited about that. Then Zach Moss, with the news coming out of Jonathan Taylor being out for the next couple of weeks, he was really good without Jonathan Taylor. Whenever he gets a workload, he's been really good in Indianapolis. So excited about that. Braden Cooks has been sneaky good over the last 3 weeks. He's the number 2 wide receiver in Dallas just because he's not going to supplant CD. Dak Prescott has been unbelievable recently. Going to keep riding that. Should have a fairly good baseline, looking for 7 targets, and he has really good touchdown upside. And once again, at tight end, just trying not to get 0, and Tyler Conklin rarely ever lays a 0. Doesn't really ever get to 10, but not 0.
I am fucking sorry. What did you just say about my boy Ty Conklin?
Let's see. I'm pulling up his thing. He has not been over 10 once this season, but that's okay. He's only been at 0 once.
14, 12.6, 10.7, and 10.
I have standard up.
Bastard.
I have standard up. My apologies. I have standard up.
Back. Did you hear that creaking? That's the sound of Lucas backpedaling on his tricycle all the way back home to cry about how wrong you are. You know, I really expected a sharper week from you. Week 12, round 6, Sam Howell, and Ty Conklin sucks. We're going to have a serious talk about this.
He's fine. He's not going to give me 0.
He's the conch daddy, and you will respect him as such. I'm just hoping that I'm not calling him daddy next week on this show. That's going to wrap it up. Ryan, plug. The people at fantasypoints.com already know you're the GOAT, but let's tap them in. What do you have for them this weekend coming up?
Yeah, so this week on Friday, my Underdog Battle Royale coverage is going to drop. So if you've never heard of it, very quick plug. It's basically a combination between a large field DFS tournament and an underdog draft. You can do multiple entries. You can just get into these quick, like 5 to 10 minute drafts and draft all weekend, make all the stacks you want, and root for them going into the week. I think it's a ton of fun. It's a game where there's not a lot of content being made, so I think there's a big edge. We identified the winning stack last week in it. So yeah, if that sounds interesting to you, definitely check that out on the site. And then the only other thing is, yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at QBLRyan.
Love that, man. Yeah, it's really great stuff. We're ahead of the curve, as always, over at fantasypoints.com. We're doing it the right way. Nobody else is putting out that content. We got you covered. Lucas, Devi show, what's next?
Next week we'll be picking up the Devi show again. It's a little bit longer break than we normally do, but conference championships are this weekend. It's going to be a lot of fun. Transfer portal is opened up, which means there's a lot of really big names who are watching potential movement for some high-ranking quarterbacks in the 2025 class coming up. So lots of really fun things. National Signing Day is 3 weeks away, or at least the early signing period is 3 weeks away. So really, really exciting time for the Devi show. There's going to be tons of content. And because you can't spend 8 hours a day trying to keep up with it, come listen to us for an hour, wherever we spent 8 hours a day keeping up with it. And we have everything that you need to be aware of, especially as it regards to your dynasty teams too.
Right. Devi and Dynasty are two things that go hand in hand. If you're not playing Devi or don't know Devi and you want an advantage in your league, tune in to the Full Tilt Devi show over at Full Tilt Fantasy Football on YouTube. Link will be in the description. And head over to that. Get caught up. Stay ahead of your league mates. And of course, there's so many great programs and shows at the Fantasy Points YouTube channel. If you're not, subscribe. If you haven't already, hit the bell, get notified. We appreciate it. You will be a better fantasy player, DFS player, tournament player. However you play, you will be better for it. Your wallet will thank you. I am so happy with where the show has come to. It's been more than I could have expected. Wouldn't be here without, again, all the listeners. So shout out to you guys. We are growing every single week. If there is content that you're not getting that you need, let us know. Leave a comment in the video. Tag me on Discord. DM me. Get a hold of me. At El Nostradamus on the amateur porn site known as x.com. Wherever you have to, just tap in, and I will make sure that we hit that content. As always, remember to check in on your loved ones, even if you're not sure they need it. Remember that clear eyes and full hearts can never lose in your best days. Well, goddamn, they're always been tilting. Ryan, it was a pleasure. Thanks for hopping on with us. We had a phenomenal time. We tried some new stuff. Let us know what you think. Have a great night. We'll see you next week. Till next time.